Are you deciding whether to go with Things 3 or Todoist for your task manager? Then you found the right video. My name is Peter, and I will be comparing Things 3 and Todoist in this video. Now, I've been working with Things 3 for quite a while now, and full disclosure, I have an online course teaching you how to use Things 3 to be more organized and be more productive. So I'm biased here, but I'm not getting paid to promote either Todoist or Things. So this is my honest opinion. Now, if you end up choosing Things 3 after you watch this video, then I highly recommend enrolling in my course, Organize Your Life with Things 3, and the link to that is in the description below the video. But let's jump right in to this comparison between Things and Todoist. Okay, what I've done is on the left, I've got Things the way that I normally use it. On the right, I've got Todoist, and I tried to set it up in a way that's pretty close to what's going on in my Things right now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to compare these two apps on the three most important criteria that you want to look at when you consider which task manager to go with. And by the way, I also have a free mini course called Choosing the Right Task Manager for You. So I'll put the link to that in the description below the video as well. I'll cover similar points to what I'm covering here in that mini course. So I'll talk about those three things. Then I'll talk about some other things that I think Things does better than Todoist. And along the way, we'll cover the one major caveat that we need to talk about when it comes to my recommendation to go with Things, because there is one thing that Todoist has as an advantage over Things 3. All right, what are the three key points that you really got to look at? The first one is your task manager must distinguish between intent dates and due dates. Let me show you what that means. Okay, so I'm going up to my upcoming view in Things, and I'll do the same thing in the upcoming view in Todoist on the right over here. Now, I'm recording a podcast episode tomorrow with a guest, Janelle, and when I'm preparing for a podcast episode, I'm writing down some things to ask, some topics of discussion to discuss with my guest. So I have a task here that says prepare questions to ask my guest, and I've set this up as well in Todoist. So in Todoist, it's over here. Now, here's the thing. That task has a deadline of tomorrow, has a due date of tomorrow. It needs to be done tomorrow because tomorrow is my podcast recording. However, just because a task is due tomorrow, does that mean I should do it tomorrow? No, I mean, you probably want to do it a little bit ahead of time, or at least some of the time you're going to want to be doing things before the deadline. You don't always want to be doing things last minute because other stuff may come up and prevent you from doing it. And you don't want to miss your deadlines. How do you handle this in Things? So in Things, what you do is there's a deadline, but there's a separate when date. And the when date is really expressing your intent. It's not like when is this due, but when am I planning to work on this? So I can actually set that to today. And so now I can say, if I go over to my today view, today I'm planning to prepare questions to ask my guest, but it's okay if I don't get to it because the deadline is tomorrow. Do you see this important distinction? So sometimes there's just a really bad consequence if you don't do something by a certain time. In this case, if I don't prepare my questions ahead of time, it's going to be a pretty awkward conversation and an awkward podcast. So it's an important distinction. Now, what happens in Todoist if I want to say, you know what, I'm going to work on this today. I'm just going to drag this over to today up here. And now if I go to today, you'll see that prepare questions to ask my guest is sitting in here. But what if I forget to do it today, right? Or what if I don't get around to it? Now the task will just roll over to tomorrow, but there is no longer the information attached to this task of what is the deadline. Do you get what I'm saying? This becomes really important. So let's do another example. If I go over in Things and I have this task here that says I just need to check something with my tax agency, I might have to file a certain tax return. And that's due on April 16th, because if I do have to file it, they need to receive it by April 17th, blah, blah. If they don't, I'll get a big fine. So it has a deadline. But I scheduled it the deadline is April 16th, but I scheduled it to do on April 1st, because I don't want to get up close to the deadline. I don't want to get that fine. Now, how might I do this in Todoist? In Todoist, I could set it to April 16th, but then that's cutting it really close. What if it takes me a couple days to figure out how to do this, or I can't reach them on the phone, the tax agency, because it's busy or whatever? So in Todoist, you're just stuck with you can set the task to April 1st, but then what if I don't get around to it April 1st? Now I don't remember what the actual deadline was, right? So you lose that crucial bit of information. So, Things has a big advantage over Todoist on this first point. Second point, project-based thinking. Does your task manager support project-based thinking? Meaning, does it not just have simple lists? So really simple task managers will have a list. Groceries, right? Home or whatever. and you can put stuff in that list and that's it. Smarter task managers work with projects and ask you, hey, what are some projects you're doing? Things that have more than one step. You may not do all of these steps at the same time, and you're going to complete them at some point. So for example, I'm working on a new course, and I want to create what's called a lead magnet for that course. So like a free part of that course just to show people some part of the bigger course, right? Anyway, that's a thing that I need to do. And it is a defined project. I'm going to start on it at some point. I'm going to work through it, and I'm going to finish it at some point, right? So that's something that is a one-time thing. And in things, you have the nice distinction between, on the one hand, areas. For example, I have an area for course development. And then within areas, you can have tasks sitting directly in there, but you can also have projects. So the area of course development isn't going anywhere, right? Course development is a thing that I'm going to continue to do. But planning my next course, at some point I'm going to be done with that. So a project, I'm going to check it off and it's going to be gone. In Todoist, you can't do this. In Todoist, everything is just either a project or a task. So I have my same planned course project here, right? But it sits underneath this top level thing, which is also called a project. In things, these are areas, and these are projects. In Todoist, this is a project and this is a project. And you can still archive this project. I can still say, okay, I'm done with planning my course. I'm going to archive this project now. But what you cannot do is you cannot click on the top level thing and see all the projects and tasks that live underneath that. So in things, I click on course development and I see all the tasks and projects that I've got living underneath that area. So it's just a way nicer way of organizing things in a much more natural way to think about your life, right? Some other areas I have are health, learning, my podcast, relationships I've got with people, trips I want to go on and stuff. And so in Todoist, the level of organization is a lot more confusing, and it's much harder to get a sense of like, oh, what are all the course development things that I need to do, for example. So again, things as a major advantage here. All right, the third key criterion that you want to pay attention to when you're choosing a task manager is it available on all of your key devices? Now, if you use Apple devices only, so iMac, MacBook, iPad, iPhone, whatever, Things is going to be available on all of those for you. But Things is not available on any non-Apple devices, whereas Todoist is pretty much available anywhere. I mean, whatever device you're using, surely Todoist is available on it. So that's the one major caveat to why I can't recommend Things for everybody. I mean, I can for everybody who's able to install it, but if you have an Android phone, I wouldn't recommend using Things because you'd only be able to use Things on maybe your computer, your iPad, or whatever, but you wouldn't be able to use it on your phone. And it's really important that you're able to access your task manager anytime, so that when you're on the go or just slouching on the couch or whatever, and you've got an idea, you can pop that idea right into your task manager, which you won't be able to do with Things if you've got like an Android phone or something, or maybe like a PC at work. So, so I don't recommend doing that. Although if you have an iPhone and the only thing you've got that's not an Apple device is like your work PC, just buy an iPad, bring your iPad to work, use Things on the iPad, and manage your tasks that way. So those are the three most important criteria. Is it available on all your key devices? Do we have project-based thinking, which Todoist claims to have but doesn't really have? And is there that distinction between intent dates and due dates, which there is in Things, but there's not in Todoist. So these are already some good reasons to go with Things unless you can't use Things. But I want to show you a couple of minor points as well that in my advantage just really make it a no-brainer if you're still questioning at this point. So the thing that I love about Things is if you go to the upcoming view, and by the way, so Todoist also has this upcoming view, but in Things 3, it'll show your calendar events as well. So it shows that currently my girlfriend happens to be visiting family in Turkey. So this is an all-day event, but it also shows, hey, tomorrow at 7:30, I got a podcast episode. Tuesday at 2:30, I'm meeting my personal trainer to do some outdoor lifting. I can't show that in Todoist. It's just not there. Also, by the way, aesthetically, I just much prefer the look of Things. I suppose this is personal, but I just think everything looks so much cleaner and more organized, here in Things than in Todoist. But anyway, so the upcoming view is way better in Things. Now, another view that Things has that I really like is the anytime view. There is no analogy to that in Todoist. It's just a list of tasks that you could work on anytime. So it's things that you haven't scheduled them yet, right? So you haven't said, you know what, I'm planning to work on that on Wednesday, right? Or I'm planning to work on that today. Or, you know what, I'm planning to work on that someday in the future, maybe. We'll talk about someday in a second. Just things that make sense to work on whenever you've got a free moment. And it's lovely. In things, I can just look at that list, and I can scroll down the list. I can filter the list if I want. And super handy, at a glance, see what makes sense to work on right now, and then I can go pick some of these things and assign those to today. That's a really solid workflow. There's just no way to do that in Todoist. So like, what are you going to do in Todoist? You're going to just have to click through all of your projects, like, oh, what could I do for this, right? What could I do for this? What could I do for this? What could I... It gets really tedious, and it's much harder to get an overview and harder to choose, right? In Things 3, you quickly get a list of what are all the things you could be doing right now. All you got to do is choose and then start working. So related to that is the someday view, which I really like in Things 3. And someday is this special category, a special time, really, that you can assign a task to. So there's some things that, you're like, oh, you know what, that would be nice to do someday. In Things 3, you just assign it to someday. So one of them I got is a project to buy my own scuba gear. I've been meaning to do that for years. Maybe you've been watching my videos from like a year and a half ago and you see me talk about this. But then the pandemic and the lockdown happened, and I haven't been diving in a long time. And so, right now it doesn't make sense for me to buy my own scuba gear. I'm not going to go anywhere in the next couple months. I can't travel. But at some point, I'm going to want to buy my own scuba gear. So it's fine. It's nice that there's a reminder in here. I just don't want to see it all the time. So by putting it in this someday bucket, it doesn't appear in the anytime bucket. And I can make a distinction between things that I want to work on right now and things that I don't want to work on right now. Like, I want to work on them sometime in the future, maybe. That's what the someday bucket is for. Can you set up something kind of analogous to this in Todoist? Kinda. You can start using labels and using some filters and whatever. But it doesn't work as nicely. And so, Things just does a much better job of implementing it. Overall, if you're still doubting between Things 3 and Todoist, if you're using only Apple devices, it really should be a no-brainer. Go with Things 3. Check out my course, Organize Your Life with Things 3, if you want to learn a whole workflow for using Things 3 to be more organized and more productive. If you're not using all Apple devices, then Todoist can be a good option for you, although there are other task managers out there that you may also want to check out. All right. Thanks for watching, and have a great day.